Concerns are mounting that the FIA are to investigate McLaren for stealing more Ferrari intellectual property. Heikki Kovalainen's car was found to be copying Ferrari's latest design innovation, a hole in the nose. However, according to McLaren, the modifications to the MP423 offer no performance gain. They claim the hole in the nose of the car only appeared at the race in Barcelona as the result of Heikki's crash.
Gareth Jones on speed!
If it's not the sort of full Woodco man experience with the naked ladies, it's just not the same.
Welcome to Gareth Jones on Speed as we're discussing the full Wicker Man experience with naked ladies, business as usual. Zog, Richard, welcome to the programme, audience.
Good to be here.
Yeah.
Hello.
I'm deeply worried. I'm just reading this document here which outlines the plans for Formula One over the next few years regarding KERS, Kinetic Energy Recovery Systems. This is your future, race fans. This is what we're going to have to come to terms with, right? Get this. Here we go. It's a hardcore start to the show this week. Here we go. Mosley suggested that from next season, teams should be allowed, or could be allowed, to use KERS to draw up to 60 kilowatts of energy from one axle on the car. So they mean front or rear?
Axle.
Rear axle, yeah. Which would allow the drivers to access 400 kilojoules of energy per lap to use in the form of a boost button. Right, once again, I think I said it in the last show.
Where have they got this from?
Yeah, I think F1's watching A1 really closely again, aren't they? And then beyond that, here we go, teams can consider this framework, which would allow that limit to be doubled by 2011, and furthermore allow KERS to work from both axles to draw 200 kilowatts of energy and convert it to 1.6 megajoules per lap from 2013. Mosley then offered an incentive to the teams to develop KERS systems as they draw energy from other heat sources on the car, suggesting that while they would be not compulsory, their stored power could be allowed to be fed straight back through the powertrain rather than a limited boost, so continuous stuff, right? Thus creating competitive development environment for the technology. Gentlemen, discuss.
Well, my first question is, why put a limit on how much energy they can recover, store in the first place? Why not make it unlimited and therefore help to drive the development of the technology? Because the teams will have more incentive to make that technology work for them if they don't have a limit on it. And, and surely at the start of it, when you're ramping it up, you're not going to be able to do as good a job. And in order to have something that's race ready, that's reliable, and that's not going to blow up at the back of the car halfway through the race, you're going to be, working at the lower amounts of energy. So it's not going to be making it insanely dangerous. Yeah, but why have the limits?
I'm a bit thick. How do they measure how many joules or kilojoules or whatever they are actually harvesting and storing?
Asprey. You remember the people who used to sponsor, the jewellers who used to sponsor Ferrari? They're going to get them in to measure the joules in carats, I think.
Right.
So the Jaguar from a couple of years ago that crashed at Monaco and they never got that bit of the nose cone back, that would have been quite a high tech car.
That could harness the pure power of PR rubbish.
It doesn't take long before we start something sensibly and we degenerate to nonsense.
Genuine question. How do they do it? I don't understand.
Haven't got a clue. No idea.
Can I ask another question, Gareth? Because you know about A1 a lot more than probably we do. Yeah. The A1 cars aren't using regenerative power. Very hard to say that. Regenerative power.
No.
They have an onboard boost button that is purely just accessing an extra shot of power from the engine.
It remaps the engine, I believe, for a short while.
This is
actually different technology, new technology.
Yeah, but the end result is similar.
Yeah. And it's a great idea.
Oh yeah, well, Champ Car had it too.
That's the first thing. Do we like the do? But again, Champ Car wasn't Champ Car again something in the engine management or something to do with the turbo?
It was to do with the turbo. It was an overboost, I think.
Whereas what we're talking about here is a kind of technology that we haven't seen on Formula One cars before. It's basically a flywheel that is sped up when you brake, and then when you want to push to pass, you want to release the energy, you release that energy through a clutch back into the drivetrain, and you get a bit of a boost. But I think I read that the Toyota, one of the Toyota team seniors had said that they weren't that impressed with the F1 plans for kinetic energy recovery because it wasn't ambitious enough, and that they were already recovering more energy in some car that they're running in a Japanese race series a Supra of some kind, than is going to be recovered by the F1 systems. And it seems to me that if F1 is supposed to be a premier race series, it should be pushing the boundaries. It shouldn't be lagging behind anybody else.
Toyota would say that, of course, because they're the leaders, they would argue, in hybrid technology, and that's in some form kinetic energy recovery, isn't it? Or certainly energy recovery.
It has that facility, yes.
Yeah. However,
and that's true, actually, and it might well be that what they were talking about there was a hybrid drivetrain that's storing energy in an electrical form rather than storing the energy as these things are in a mechanical form, in a really fast, heavy little flywheel.
I'm intrigued by this. Talking about flywheels, do you remember a few years ago, Chrysler developed a sports prototype for Le Mans called the Patriot, which had a flywheel which would do exactly that. It had a gas turbine engine and this flywheel which would store up this energy, and it would allow them to use it whenever they needed it. The reason, I understand, that it didn't catch on was they couldn't keep the flywheel on its pinions, is that what you call it? The mounts?
Bearings?
Bearings, yeah. Because this thing was whizzing around at something like 40,000 RPM, or even higher than that, I think, it was just launching itself off through the side of the car, and it was lethal. And the only time that the car run was a demonstration at Donington, and the reason that it was at Donington is because it's got hills. And it was actually freewheeling because they couldn't make it work.
Did you know, speaking of which, because that's the thing, gas turbines spin incredibly quickly.
Yeah.
And it's one thing spinning quickly rather than an F1 engine which does 18,000 RPM or whatever it can do, but it's lots of crank. It's lots of things moving around in one crank, and it's not going to fly off really. But gas turbines is one big thing, one big impeller or whatever, spinning around really quickly. When Rover were doing their gas turbine work in the 50s, which led to the Rover BRM Le Mans car, which we were talking about off air before. But a lot of the engine test cell work they did in the 50s, the engineers resorted to standing behind a wall of sandbags because quite frequently the engine would just explode, and because it was moving so fast, these bits of impeller would fly off and jam themselves in the wall. It was dangerous, lethal stuff.
Well, that's it. At the same time, I'm quite excited to see where this is going to go and what used teams are going to make of this. To me, the obvious question about this is how safe can it be? Because you're packing quite a lot of energy into a very small mechanical device, and if something goes wrong, you've got quite a big explosion waiting to happen at the back of the car.
Well, yeah, I suppose. But then again, jet engines don't regularly sort of spit out stuff, and they spin pretty fast.
They don't now, but then we've had a lot of development of gas turbine turbine engines over a very long time, and certainly I think the first aircraft turbine engines weren't anything like as reliable. Now it's a very reliable technology.
But is that it? Can they use some of the bearing technology that is now so advanced that it stops things flying off at random? Maybe they can. I know what you mean, though.
No idea.
It could still be.
But I suspect that the problem is going to be more to do with things like maybe the clutch. As I understand it, you've got to have a continuously variable transmission system to feed energy into the flywheel and get it back out again.
Okay.
And I'd have thought that might be the weak point.
There's a lot of complicated things going on.
Well, interestingly,
technology.
How many finishes did we have at the first race of this season? Something like 7 cars finished this year? Wasn't even that much, was it? But that always, at the start of the season, you don't get many cars finishing because they're developing new technologies which go wrong. At the start of the next season with all this KERS, if we get one car to the finish, that'll be doing well, and I think it'll be the car which doesn't employ KERS to get there.
It'll be a Super Aguri if they're running.
And interestingly, of all the teams around at the moment, I believe Williams were well advanced on that stuff, so Williams has certainly got an advantage. Here's the surprise left field advantage for me. Force India are owned by
Vijay
Mallya, who runs what sort of company in...
Steel Company, amongst other things.
Primarily, though, Kingfisher Airlines. Kingfisher Airlines have just done an enormous deal with Airbus Industry, a division of EADS. Airbus Industry are going to do some development work for Force India regarding kinetic energy recovery systems and turbines and flywheels and all that sort of thing. How about that, eh?
Wow.
That isn't, although just to throw a slightly negative note in here, at the same time it sounds like Force India could be getting a really good leg up in the development there, and maybe be doing technologically in that area work that might compare with, what some of the top teams could be doing, conceivably. I think if you actually, I'm not sure about this, but I think if you actually look at the amount of energy they're talking about, that 400 kilojoules, what are the numbers again?
200 kilojoules and convert it to 1.6 megajoules per lap.
Yeah, if you actually work out how that compares to the amount of energy that you put through the wheels by burning fuel during a lap, it's really not very much. It's sort of a couple of cc's of fuel, basically.
Okay.
Well, the interesting thing about all this is that whenever there is a massive fundamental change to the rules, he does even up the pack a little bit.
Yeah,
for sure.
A little later this afternoon, a brand new series for petrol heads here on BBC One. Gareth Jones on Speed, the TV show, presented by Richard Porter, Zog, and of course Gareth Jones. But first, here's Steve Ryder and Martin Brundle as Formula One returns to the BBC.
Start of F1 season 2009. Some interesting rule changes, of course, not least the introduction of the much fabled KERS. Let's have a look at the grid. On pole, we've got that bloke who used to be all right for Team GB in A1 Grand Prix. Alongside him on row 1, the lead singer of Simple Minds. Well, that seems to be it. You'd have to say, Martin, there seems to be a hideous mix-up.
Oh, I don't know. At least James Allen isn't here.
Sniff Petrol with Gareth Jones on Speed!
I am indebted to Manny, who wrote to me from somewhere in the untied states of America this week.
Out of the Stone Roses?
Not that
Manny
one.
out of Black Books.
No, not Manny out of Black Books either, or even Manny the mammoth from Ice Age. I do have kids. And they watch it this afternoon when I was trying to write ideas for the show, so it filters through. So he wrote to me because you remember I said, I don't understand NASCAR. Do we understand NASCAR? Hands up. No, we don't understand NASCAR. And he wrote to me, bless him, a 3-page email explaining NASCAR. NASCAR Winston, previously the Nextel Sprint Cup Series, the Premier Division, NASCAR Busch Nationwide Series, the NASCAR's Craftsman Truck Series, and why watch NASCAR? That bit's blank. I don't know. No, that's not true. and he was very, 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 very good and
That's
gave me...
a massive email.
It is, yeah, and unfortunately no use for this programme.
3 pages of A4.
The first word that I read there is thrust.
No way.
I just glanced over that last page. The one word that says it is thrust.
I'll read it to you. This is what it says here. At the end of the email, he says, Manny says,
That's a bit embarrassing. He's quoting something I wrote.
He does, Richard. He says,
I laughed at one of my own jokes by accident.
I found it quite entertaining how Richard Porter, the guy who came up with the Dodge Thrust V8, is excited by only a 6-litre V8 in his new Vauxhall, which we're still waiting for Richard to turn up here in. We're getting, not myself, just as we in America, the Pontiac G8 GXP with a 6.3-litre LS3 V8. That's 430 horsepower. The Australians will get the Holden Special Vehicles Commodore W427 with the Corvette Z06 7-litre LS7 V8 with 500 horsepower.
Manny, dude, first of all, it's 6.2 engine, he says pedantically, but also those are American, I think it's American horsepower, so you're measuring it in SAE possibly or something like that. The figures, the stats, if you do it in BHP, like we measure it in the UK, they're pretty much the same for the 6.2 as for the 6-litre. The exciting thing is the 6.2, which will not be in my Vauxhall. And by the way, Veronica, nice press lady from Vauxhall, if you're listening, please can I have my car now? The thing is that it's the 6.2 is better able to take a supercharger. And that's why Vauxhall won't be bringing in the 7-litre. The GM PR guy, the boss, big honcho of communications in the UK, is a guy called Joe Jacuzzi.
No relation?
No. Oh, yeah, he is, apparently.
Really?
Anyway, really, really top man, Joe Jacuzzi. Hello, Joe. An American guy. And he said that they're still thinking about bringing the 7-litre VXR8 in, but probably not, because they can get the same amount of power for less money to the customer from putting a supercharger onto the existing V8, and when they get that 6.2 in, they reckon they can crank it up to something about 6 600 horsepower if they wanted to, which is crazy.
That's not bad.
And by the way, you're still waiting for your car.
I am.
My Clubman comes after the end of the weekend.
Does
I'll
it?
have my little Clubman,
nice work.
But I'm only going to have it for a week, unfortunately. So,
well, I beat you both because I got my Porsche back from the garage.
Yay!
And it's looking beautiful.
Yay for that! We'll come
Right
outside.
So you see, the moral of the story there is if you actually pay for your own car, you get it back quicker. So, yeah, that'll teach us.
I quite like touring cars, okay? I'll put my hand up.
You turned into Tom Paul in there.
I quite like touring cars. I was having this conversation with my mate Bobby Troman the other day, who can't stand touring cars because of all the rubbing his racing stuff that goes on.
Right.
I'm with him. I don't think motorsport should be a contact sport. I think it's too dangerous.
It's too rough and ready, and it should be about racing, not about bumping.
But the thing is, I quite like touring cars, but I should really like touring cars, and I don't.
Oh, well.
And this is why. Go on. It's because of the names of the people who drive it, right? I'll come to the names in a moment, but right, we were at Brands Hatch, Violet and I, for a touring cars race a couple of years ago, guest of Jason Plato, who's a great bloke, right? And Violet had never seen touring cars before. She watched the race. The race was very entertaining, and we stood by the paddock as all the cars came into the paddock, and the doors opened, and the drivers got out, and Violet nearly had a happy accident laughing. She nearly wet herself laughing, because they all got out of the car wearing full race suits, Nomex, helmets, gloves, racing boots, the full kit, right? As far as Violet's concerned, she's just watched a bunch of Civic hatches going around the M25 and expected them to get out of the car. Here comes Violet now. What did you expect them to wear? Here she is again.
Well, I was most surprised about their footwear. I had expected that. I'd truly expected them to have black slip-on shoes and white socks.
Loafers, it's true, and short-sleeve shirts.
You thought you were just watching some sales reps, on the way to a plastics conference or something.
I thought they were going to pick a suit off the hanger.
Well, they're never going to get to the Utoxis of Travel Tavern if they keep going around in circles.
And that is my first problem with touring cars, right? The cars that they're driving around at the moment are just too domestic.
Yes.
I'd much rather watch the DTM where you got big C-classes and Audi A4s drop down low and they look serious.
Mental, I mean, they're not really Audi A4s and Mercedes C-classes, are they? They've got carbon tubs in the middle.
What do we call them?
Megabits of kit,
silhouette cars.
Silhouette cars. Yeah. But did you know it's 50 years of touring cars this year?
Oh, we can't sing happy birthday. It's in copyright, isn't it?
Who did we find out owns it? Is it Disney or Walmart or someone?
It's Michael Jackson, I think.
Is it?
I think so.
Or is that copyright infringement? I don't know. But it's 50 years of touring cars this year, and we were going to do a thing on Top Gear about it, hopefully, and we were looking back at it, and you're right, too hatchbacky now. Yeah. Where are the Capris? Where are the Rover SD1s? Yes, the Lotus Cortinas.
The big
Alpha 155s. I mean, that was a fun.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
The Volvo 850 estate.
Bonkers, but brilliant. God, it got people talking. Where, going right back, were those epic struggles between Minis and Ford Falcons.
Yeah.
Which you can still see recreated at the Goodwood Revival.
Beautiful.
And I have never seen something so extraordinary. These huge Langeos. Yeah, and there's on the straights, these thundering V8s go by, and then the corners they have to jam on their rather bad anchors, and the Mini just goes through, and it's fabulous. Yeah. Where's that? Where's that? What you should get now is a Daewoo Matiz touring car, and then get a Mercedes S-Class or a Jaguar XJ8 touring car, and have that ridiculous mismatch of sizes and straight line speed versus cornering, because it made it. It's brilliant. The Goodwood Revival is extraordinary when they bring out the old touring cars. It's fabulous.
I'm
so
absolutely
why don't
with
they do
it
it like that anymore? What's
cost?
Who's ruined it? What's
the interest of cost?
Who do we blame?
Yeah, 2 litre, aren't they? Yeah.
Well, it's too much to do with. I would get it's just a marketing thing. That the manufacturers want to see cars that as many people as possible can go out and buy on a Monday, and they don't want the cars to be too different. But
here's a question for Seat, for example, who've done pretty well in touring cars around the time. How many more cars do they sell because of touring cars?
Probably not that many. Okay, but the single biggest problem I think with touring cars might not be the cars themselves. It's the names of the drivers. Listen to this. They don't sound like racing drivers. I'm sure all these guys are great racing drivers, okay? They just don't sound like them. Alan Taylor. works in marketing, I think, doesn't he?
I think he sold me my mortgage.
Yeah. Matt Neal works in the veg shop.
Yeah.
Oh no, the fish shop.
Nilo?
Adam Jones sounds like a long lost member of my family. You know. My favourite, of course, Colin Turkington. Oh, Colin, can't.
He's a local Rotarian in Harrogate.
Stephen Jelly. I'm not making this up. Martin Bell, Jason Hughes. It's not great, is it?
Standard.
Yeah, Martin Bell almost cut it as a racing driver name. But no, you want racing drivers. We've got Wolfgang von Trips. That's a racing driver.
But there are some good names in the BTCC. Tom Chilton, that's pretty good. It's a quick-sounding name, I think. He's got a good haircut. Yeah, Tom Chilton. It's an improvement.
Has a name in the last show?
He just sounds like you'd bump into him in Fulham.
Okay.
Which you probably would, but...
Fabrizio Giovinardi.
That's a fast name.
Can't even say it. Giovinardi.
Immediately it's fast. Yeah, Fabrizio.
Jason Plato, good name.
That's quite a heroic name.
Rob Collard, not bad. Mike Jordan. I mean, it's almost Formula 1 name, Jordan, you know. Yeah. And, of course, the best of the lot. I can't even say this one. Erkut Kizlima. I can't even say it.
How's it spelled? How's it spelled? Erkut Kislimak.
Yeah, thank you. But haircut. Have you got a good haircut in your car?
I see what you've got on your list here as well. Harry Volkard.
That's good.
Volkard!
There's no need for bad language. And Tom Onslow Cole. That's a good one, isn't it? And Stephen Kane. Not bad. So really, they should start by forcing racing drivers with dull names to change their names.
Right, come on. British Touring Car, sign up this way. Let's get this kicked into shape. Bit of marketing behind it. Okay, come on, in. Who's next? Name, please.
Matt Neal.
No, that won't do. From now on, you are Matthias Molcevaloce. Next.
Jason Hughes.
Oh, God, no. For this season, let me think, you are Giancarlo Frosthammer. Right, next, name...
Alan Taylor.
Alan Taylor, Jesus, come on, bit of sex in it, get it going. All right, you are Alessandro Vittisimondo. Right, keep it moving, come on people, we haven't got all day, come on, name, you.
I think I'm in the wrong room.
Just give me a name.
Jensen Button.
Look, mate, we make up the ridiculous names here.
Gareth Jones on Speed is very normal, very, very normal.
Every now and again on Gareth Jones on Speed, something slightly exciting happens, like Richard gets a big fast car to come and drive around Britain in, or I get a nice new car to review, or Zog gets something wonderful fixed on his Porsche. But something genuinely super exciting has happened for us in the last couple of weeks. Richard, go on, tell us.
Yeah, I like the use of the word us there. Something really exciting happened to me.
Vicariously, we got excited even knowing that you were going to do it.
And I deliberately not told you about it because I thought I'll tell you now. But I went out to the United States to drive the new Nissan GT-R.
That's exciting,
isn't it?
It was fantastic. It was a really weird trip. I was in the US for 3 days, the West Coast as well. So I did a long old flight, and it was worth every moment of it because we went out to Nevada.
No, are there speed limits in Nevada these days?
Yeah, there are. Yeah, yeah. But
and you didn't get near them, did you, Richard?
I temporarily ignored them a little
good.
bit by a factor of 2.5.
No.
Nice,
and what is the speed limit
long,
there?
straight
65?
Actually, hang on. What did I say? 2.5?
Yeah.
I think, yeah. The point is, I drove...
How fast did you go?
I might have... I think I saw about 130 on a desert road.
On a desert road?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
fine. I went, there was a racetrack, but it was a really sort of short, technical little racetrack, really up and downy, which I think they'd chosen deliberately because that car spent so much time at the Nürburgring, so they wanted something with some funny cambers and up and downs and blind crests and stuff like that. So you didn't really get much speed per se, but it was a really good test of the car.
You got to try the hand. You got to really
try the handling. Yeah. The handling.
Now this is. I mean, this car is the son of the Skyline. We were not allowed to call it a Skyline.
No, it's the just family. GT-R. Just GT-R.
Yeah. And of all the cars to come out of Japan, this is probably the most exciting, and this is the car which probably gets closest to Zog, forgive me for saying this, can indeed match and occasionally trounce a Porsche 911 for performance.
Oh yeah, no, the Skyline GT-R, magnificent car. I mean, it's a really wonderful. It's a motor. I think we'd all agree it's one of those very fast motoring icons that we love.
It has a couple of issues though, doesn't it? One is the gas that's in the tyres. It's not
nitrogen.
Air. Nitrogen. So if you have a flat, you've got to find a Nissan dealership or, I don't know, a BOC factory that can pump it up for you.
You've got to suck the carbon dioxide and the oxygen out of the air before you... there's got to be something.
Richard,
with
do that manually.
With a straw. Yes, it has nitrogen in the tyres because nitrogen, its characteristics change less under heat. So when the tyres get hot, there's less
moisture there, doesn't expand.
Yes, exactly. So it's just better for that. That's the attention to detail that's gone into this car. It's extraordinary. I'll tell you a few other things about it. Attention to detail. It actually has, speaking of getting flat, it has run flat tyres. Now, normally in Nissan, there's a whole corporate structure. There's a sort of manager, project manager, different managers for different areas of the car, the finance and then the engineering and then marketing or whatever. It was all pulled together under this guy called Mizuno-san, as they refer to him, this Japanese guy, and he's just obsessive, and he only answered to one person, Carlos Ghosn, the head of Renault-Nissan. That's it. If he wanted things done...
The Mr. Bean of motor industry.
Mr. Bean.
He looks just like him.
Have you seen him in a race suit? I saw a picture of him in a race suit. God, it's embarrassing. Anyway, but he's a brilliant, manager, and he's turned Nissan around. And this is how he has then allowed them to do this car. He felt it was important to do it, but nothing can happen until the company's making money. This car will make them money, which is all the more extraordinary when you hear the detailing that's gone into it. I'll give you an example. The aerodynamics on it. There's things like, if you look at a picture of that car, the rear pillar, the very back pillar, has got this sort of funny crease halfway down it, and it looks like a sort of styling affectation, and a bit of an odd one that sort of breaks up a smooth line. But it's purely there for aerodynamics. It splits the air, and it forces some of it towards the rear wing, which is there for purely aerodynamic purposes. It looks a little bit tarty. It's the one bit of the car that you think makes it a bit brazen and a bit much. But it is absolutely there to provide positive downforce at speed, and it really works. So to get this sort of detailed aero work, the front wings, they triple stamp the panel. So it's stamped in a press once, and in most cars that's it, then it goes onto the body shell. But no, stamp once, stamp twice, stamp 3 times to get an absolutely crisp line along the top of the wing, because it's there to deflect air, and where it drops down the back it shoots clean air along the sides of the car to make it aerodynamic. It has a coefficient of drag of 0.27.
That's pretty good.
Now for a car with wings on it that generates downforce, that is extraordinary. Now here's how they did it. A normal saloon car, one of the American engineers who worked on this Nissan said to me that a regular Nissan saloon car, they do all the aerodynamics on computer, then they'll bung the clay model into a wind tunnel for 2 or 3 weeks just to make sure that everything is okay, and they'll do a bit of tweaking. 2 or 3 weeks. The GT-R was in the wind tunnel for 2 years. Mostly at Lotus, actually, because they've got the rolling road wind tunnel that can achieve the speeds they needed to.
Yeah.
2 years of detail work, just blokes trapped in a big tube with a howling gale, fiddling about with these tiny elements of the car and making the vents in the front wings so they suck air through out of the wheel arches and disperse it cleanly along the sides of the car so there's less turbulence. Things like that.
That's expensive development.
It's very expensive, and they're still claiming it'll make money.
It's a halo effect car.
It's a halo car. But under the Carlos Ghosn regime, no car can lose money.
I mean,
it won't make them a lot of money, they're saying, but it certainly won't lose them money.
I do love the sound of this car, but in some of the things you're saying, it sounds as if there are elements of it that, whilst they're really, they're optimising this as much as they're really pushing the envelope, but they may be creating a car that isn't that easy to live with. For example, nitrogen in the tyres. Okay, and I love this idea that with choosing a gas that is giving you better thermal expansion characteristics, you're getting better performance out of the wheel and tyre package, I guess.
Yeah.
But like you say, you've got to fill those tyres with nitrogen.
Oh, you don't have to now. I mean, that's the thing.
But here's the thing. But let's say that you've got a slow puncture. Let's say you've got a slow leak in one of those tyres. Okay, you should get it changed straight away, but you don't. You just keep topping up with air, over the course of a few weeks. Over the course of a few weeks, you end up with one tyre that's got air in it. The other 3 have got nitrogen in them, and now you've got a situation where one tyre has different thermal expansion characteristics or different pressure characteristics as the temperature changes compared to the rest of the other three tyres.
In fairness,
maybe
I think
that's
it's
not going to
only
make
an
any
issue if
difference
you're going to lap the Nürburgring relentlessly all week. It's in everyday driving. And that's the interesting thing. So I've been blathering on about the technical detail behind it, but here is the important thing about that car. It is sensational. It's unbelievably good. It has all this geeky, techie detail in it, and I guarantee if you owned one, and you did, as you're saying, accidentally top up one of the tyres with air, I think you'd be lying awake at night worrying about it. You'd undone all this work, and this guy Masuno-san, this Zen-like god above all of the project, making sure it was brilliant and superb, and God, he's done a good job. And they're still claiming there's more to come as well.
Wow.
They've changed it.
Yeah, there's a V-spec version.
There's a V-spec version, but better than that, they just keep on going. They realise if they change the spec of the cradle that holds the transmission, the subframe, slightly, they could make it stiffer, which would hold the subframe in place. Now, the engine and transmission are angled such that they're slightly angled so that it's not a level plane between the back of the engine where it then runs straight down to the gearbox at the back. It's slightly angled because they realised under hard acceleration the engine cants backwards on its mount, and when it cants backwards on its mount, then it forms a straight line, so you've got your minimum frictional losses then. That's how geeky this car is. And the trouble is with geeky cars, I sometimes think that geeky cars, uber geeky cars, and the Japanese do this better than anyone, sometimes they can refine out all the passion and all of the driving pleasure, and actually you end up with this incredibly efficient machine, but there's no joy to it, and it can be a little bit soulless somehow. With this, somehow, and I think it's because it was, it was one man dictated how it was. It is a superb driver's car. Everything about the paddle shift, double clutch gearbox is brilliant. It grips and handles, but it does it in a way that is both fun, but it's also just technically brilliant, and I would say better than a Porsche. Sorry, Zog.
Really.
And the power, the engine. The only thing, I have one criticism of it, and this is where it does become a little bit anodyne. The noise it makes, not exciting. Not an exciting noise. It doesn't roar.
Noise rules in America and Japan.
I think it's probably it complies with global whatever they are noise regs, but Astons do that and they just have a valve. No, it just makes it's got a bass line which is a V6, and then it's got this sort of funny whine which I guess is the turbos.
Turbo whine, I guess. Yeah.
But it's almost like it's digital because when you change gear, and the gears change like instantly because it's double clutch, so bang 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 bang, and when you do the whir sort of goes. It's almost like it's just like this digital noise. It's weird.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned choosing it over a Porsche there. You might have it, because that's exactly what I was going to say to wrap this up. Given the choice, what would you take? Would you take a 911 GT2 or the Nissan GT-R?
For pure driving, I'd have that. And for 53 grand in this country, I don't know how they're doing it.
Yeah. Sog?
Well, I don't know how they're making money on that, by the sound of it. Very expensive. I think I'd like to have a really good long test drive of both. Then I'll let you know.
We'll see if we can arrange it.
That's 6 months with each would do me.
I'd take the GT-R. I would take GT-R because I've proven Japanese experience. And there's just not that many of them compared to 911s, and everyone drives the 911s these days. No disrespect, it's a wonderful car, but I think I would have the GT-R.
I think it might be cheaper to run. Service bills might be a bit lower, maybe.
Maybe
not.
And you can always swap the indicator stalks for the Nissan Micra. That's it. Say goodbye, fellas.
Bye.
I'm going to leave you with a piece of music which I wrote a while back. I've been saving for the right moment, and this is the show to put it in. This is my interpretation of the Ramones. This is the Ram Ones. Sheena is a race car driver. Why is it in this show? Because it has the line, "You won't find me in a Nissan." Okay, maybe a GT-R. Bye. 1, 2, 3, 5.
Driving on the highway, good to be alive. Feel like doing 90, limits only 55. Sheena wants a car that is sharp and cool. Sheena wants a car that is hip. You won't see Sheena in a Nissan, maybe a GT-R. Tunability, not reliability, is why she wants from her car. Sheena is a race car fan, a rock and roll race car fan. Sheena is a race car fan, on her way to a driving band. She's a race car fan. Catch her if you can. Hot top, rank top, fast back, non-stop. Hot top, rank top, fast back, non-stop, rank top. lots of grip. Sheena is a race car fan, rock and roll for race car fan. Sheena is a race car fan, on her way to a driving ban. She's a race car fan. Catch her if you can.
Write to the show on speed at garethjones.tv. Read more info at www.garethjones.tv. Subscribe for free at the iTunes Store. Gareth Jones on Speed is made by Whizbang.